In this presentation, I'll be discussing tornadoes. I'll explain what they are, where they occur, and how they are formed. The tornado is a very fascinating phenomenon of weather. They are the most violent of atmospheric storms, and despite their small size and short lifetime, they can cause incredible destruction and are especially deadly because of the difficulty in predicting them. There are many systems that attempt to warn people when they may be about to form or if they have already formed, but compared to events like hurricanes, where you can have nearly weeks ahead of time notice, tornadoes will form and you may only have minutes to take shelter if you're lucky enough to have received a warning. So the question is, what are tornadoes and how do they work? First, let's talk about where they happen. Tornadoes are especially interesting to us Americans because we have such a huge number of occurrences. For the past decade, the United States has averaged over 1,200 tornadoes per year. And in second place, Canada has averaged between 80 and 100 tornadoes per year. Tornadoes have been recorded on every continent except Antarctica, but they primarily happen within the United States. Now, tornado is a funnel wind that connects from a large cumulonimbus storm cloud to the ground. They usually have wind speeds less than 110 miles per hour, but can be greater than 300 miles per hour. They also are about 250 feet across and have been measured to be greater than 2 miles in width, and travel between just a few miles to sometimes around 60 miles or more. Tornadoes tend to form at the meeting of strong cold fronts and warm fronts, which is why they typically happen in Tornado Alley, or the middle of America, which has been nicknamed that because of the high occurrence of tornadoes. In this area, they occur especially because strong Arctic air masses from the north can easily move south over the plains and hit very strong warm tropical fronts from the Gulf of Mexico. As warm air rises and cold air falls, a horizontal column of rotating air can begin at the intersection of the air masses. If an updraft of rising low pressure air comes beneath it and starts to rotate that spinning air, then it can become vertical and then extend to the ground and wreak havoc. Using technologies like Doppler radar to map out and study the movement of air inside storm cells, storm spotters and other experts have gathered this information over the past few decades. But meteorology is a relatively young science, especially the in-depth study of tornadoes. So in conclusion, tornadoes are sporadic and dangerous events that you should always be cautious of and have a plan to take shelter for in case of one. Tornadoes are nearly impossible to model or predict, so always be ready to respond in the case of one, and it is the best policy because they can happen anywhere in the U.S. Whether in the country or the city or the plains or the mountains, and never underestimate the deadliness of a tornado. I hope you all have learned something new and interesting today. Thanks for listening.